can trial a lot of people. They come along and they can take all the loot off them because it doesn't fucking matter. Because as long as you've got like your core 10, right? And nobody's bringing this up. And I don't know. I'm going on a bit of a tirade here, but maybe because of the heat of frustration.
He's mad.
My main point here is I could totally see my worst fear becoming real because personally, as somebody who doesn't care about loot, like if I see something that I want,
thank you so much.
I'll just say I need that, and I'll either get it or I won't. But I don't care. Like I'm moving on, and nobody else in my raid cares and hasn't done for a decade.
I don't get how I don't get how people can raid and not be loot whores. I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, why am I even there? Like, do you think that I'm here for fucking fun? Do you think that I'm here to enjoy you telling me a story about how your cat got on your keyboard last weekend and you accidentally hit a key that you weren't supposed to? I don't give a fuck, man. I'm there for the loot. I remember I used to not even get an invent. I used to not even get mumble. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I would just do the raid. I'd do top EPS and I would fucking leave if the loot didn't drop. And if it did, then I'd get the loot. And then you know what? Everybody made a big joke. I remember Trictagon made this big joke in Siege of Orgrimmar. Oh, Asmongold got the necklace from Alkorok Warforge. Well, I'll see you next expansion, man. Everybody was laughing. Everybody thought it was really funny. Except for him, because it wasn't a joke. And except for me, because it also wasn't a joke. I was gone. I was done, dude. I was gone. That's it. And that's the way it goes, man. Top DPS. So back in Siege, I was actually good at the game. For a very, very short period of time.
We're not asked. Occasionally there's somebody who's really excitable about loot. It happens. But the whole guild doesn't function if you have more than a couple of people who behave that way. It falls apart so quickly and they just leave. And you're like, well, that guy was a dick because he doesn't get it. And it's a big problem that Blizzard...
That's why I need to get it.
Seems to be trying to address with the personal loot changes that heroic raiders are moving into mythic and they're just not understanding how irrelevant loot is at that point. It's not relevant because we get everything we need. It's a passive part of what we do.
No.
The only thing they do is try and make sure they give loot to the guys that are going to be, or the classes more importantly. It's not even the guys, usually not even the player. It's the classes that are currently, because of tuning, more powerful. So it makes more sense to give loot to those guys because that's going to get us the boss kills far quicker.
Of course.
Therefore, we get more loot for everybody. Like, of course. That's just the basic principle of it, and it's nothing to do with greed because then the guys have a period of time where they don't get any loot. And I've been in that position. And if you've been there, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, I got all my gear in the first couple of weeks. Now we're gearing up everybody else. But that's the nature of the beast in Mythic raiding, and it's totally fine. It's not a problem. I feel like in BFA, certainly after tonight, I'm just going to be like, can't be fucking bothered. I just can't be bothered because, one, I've been playing the game for so long that I've been through so many expansions where
this is important right here.
You're in a clown suit. Number squishes. This is our second number squish that doesn't fucking matter. Like, it really just, it doesn't interest me. Like, what the item level of an item is. Like, oh my god, it's 985. Who fucking cares, dude? Like, we're already killing the last boss in the game, usually.
That is kind of true, yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't make any difference. We might kill it a bit quicker. Sure, that's great and all for farm, because then it's over quicker and we can all go home. I don't know, man. It was my biggest turn-off of the night. It was my only frustration. Relearning the bosses, I didn't actually mind. It's a little frustrating when I couldn't grip everything as I normally would, but I adjusted, I worked around it, and that was fine. But I've got to say, there were some definite points where I was like, you know what? This is what I worried was going to happen. And it is what's happening, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. So a little disappointed overall. So I'd love to see your thoughts on certainly the stuff I brought up about flexibility, because flex is a great thing. Flex is an absolutely great thing, and there's no denying that. I am not saying that flex needs to go. That's certainly what I'm saying. I think flex has been the best change to raiding from a lot of guilds ever. It's allowed so much flexibility to bring 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way up to whatever amount of players. But that's where the obvious abuse can happen, because you can also afford to lose those players, and that's what's generating this tyrannical loot council idea that's poisoned a lot of the player base, and unfortunately has now seeped into mythic raiding, where...
So what Preach is saying right here, actually, let me just finish.
It has very little presence comparatively. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but very little presence comparatively. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
So what Preach is saying here is actually a very, very odd issue that's occurred, and I thought this would happen, and it started to actually happen now, is that because raids are flex, each individual person has less value because they're not required in the same way that they used to be whenever you needed a 25-man or a 10-man raid. So back in the day, I used this example before, like if Jimmy the dipshit was like your last slot in your ICC run, you would spend more time keeping Jimmy the dipshit in the raid because he was still a warm body and the boss would not vary between how powerful it was based off of how many people were in the raid. So you would end up keeping these bad players in the raid more often because you weren't able to replace them as easily and it was just harder to do, right? And also they weren't necessarily making anything worse because the boss had a fixed amount of health. So the issue really now is that because bosses have dynamic health pools based off of how many people are in the groups, it has allowed players to be much more free with who they kick out of the raids. So if there's somebody in there who's fucking terrible, or not even terrible, but just who isn't fitting in and who isn't, you know, doing exactly what they want, it's easier, not more easy, it's easier to kick that person out of the raid because it doesn't really matter. Is Jimmy's real name McConnell? Yes, that's McConnell. Jimmy did nothing wrong. Yeah, it's more easy. How's that an issue? It's brilliant. Well, the issue really comes in, well, it's much more nuanced. Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? I think that, like, one thing that you can always say is that there are a lot of ideas that Blizzard has that they might be good overall. And I'm not saying that the idea should not happen. What I am saying is that the idea did have negative consequences. Because something has negative consequences does not necessarily mean that it should not happen. It just means that there are negative consequences that will occur whenever this does happen. Does that make sense? So it's like if you have something that's 80% bad, or sorry, 80% good and 20% bad, you still want to go with it because it's mostly good, right? The ends outweigh the means. It's pretty simple. I don't see how there's any, what's the problem exactly? Well, there wasn't a problem. It was more or less with the split rating. Sounds like I'm never getting kicked for more raids. Yeah, exactly. I think that missed my $50 dono. Okay, let me read that right now. Shit, man. We removed the sounds that play in our people sub. It's fucking annoying at this point. I probably will. I'll just make them shorter. I don't know how to do it, but I do plan on making better alerts in general because I do feel like they are intrusive. And that's something that I've tried to do at least a little bit with like minimizing the thing, but I do think that, yeah, I probably will change it soon.